When 28-year-old Elena Hart stood trembling before Judge Frank Caprio, 6 parking tickets stacked against her like a sentence already decided, the courtroom had no idea it was about to witness one of the most extraordinary moments of justice in Providence history. Officers claimed she'd parked illegally 6 times in just 7 days. Reporters whispered. Spectators exchanged glances. How could a woman who couldn't even see drive a car? Elena's white cane rested against the podium. Beside her, a golden retriever named Leo sat perfectly still, his head slightly tilted as if sensing the tension that filled the room. The clerk read the first charge, then the second, until the air itself felt heavy with disbelief. Judge Caprio leaned forward, puzzled. "Miss Hart," he asked, "are you saying these violations belong to you?" Her calm voice broke through the whispers. "Yes, Your Honor. But I don't drive. I've been blind since birth." A stunned silence fell. Cameras captured Caprio's brow tightening, not in judgment but curiosity. How could a blind woman receive 6 parking tickets? What secret was buried inside this impossible story? As murmurs rippled through the courtroom, Leo's tail thumped once against the floor, a small, steady reminder that truth has its own rhythm. What unfolded next would reveal not just a clerical mistake, but a system's failure, a city's blind spot, and the hidden brilliance of one extraordinary guide dog. Before we uncover how Judge Caprio exposed the truth and changed local law enforcement forever, make sure you subscribe to Real Judge Stories and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. Your support keeps stories of real justice alive and inspiring every week. The sound of soft footsteps echoed through the marble hallway as Elena Hart entered the Providence Municipal Court. Her hand lightly brushed the railing, the rhythmic tap of her cane marking each confident step. Leo, her golden retriever guide dog, walked gracefully beside her, his harness glinting under the courtroom lights. A small crowd had gathered that morning, curious about the blind woman who got 6 parking tickets. But what they were about to witness would challenge every assumption they had ever made about disability, justice, and human dignity. Judge Caprio, known for his compassion and measured tone, looked up from the bench as the pair approached. "Good morning, Miss Hart," he greeted warmly. "And good morning to your partner there. He's welcome in my courtroom." Elena smiled faintly. "Thank you, Your Honor. Leo never misses an appointment." The judge chuckled softly, then turned his attention to the stack of tickets on his desk. "Miss Hart, these 6 citations were all issued within 1 week. Each one says, parked illegally in a handicapped space without proper identification. I'll be honest, I'm struggling to understand how this could even happen." A few quiet laughs rose from the back of the room, quickly silenced by the judge's steady gaze. Elena remained poised, her fingertips resting gently on Leo's collar. "Your Honor," she said evenly, "so am I." The courtroom stilled. The hum of the ceiling fan, the shuffle of papers, even the faint clicking of a pen somewhere in the back, all seemed to pause at once. Judge Caprio leaned forward, studying her expression. "Let's take this one step at a time," he said. "You say you're blind, yet these tickets are all written in your name. We'll start with the first one. Tell me exactly what happened that day." As Leo settled quietly beside her feet, the truth that would soon shake the entire parking enforcement division of Providence began to unfold. One ticket, one injustice, one revelation at a time. Judge Frank Caprio's eyes moved carefully over the 6 tickets, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. The paperwork was routine, dates, times, locations, but the conclusion made no sense. Every citation listed the same driver, Elena Hart. The same license number, the same signature line, yet she was standing in front of him with a white cane and a service dog. "Miss Hart," he began, voice calm but probing, "these violations are all written under your name. Were you driving these vehicles?" Elena shook her head gently. "No, Your Honor. I've never driven a car in my life." The audience murmured, a wave of curiosity sweeping through the room. Caprio tapped one of the documents. "Then I need you to help me understand. How can a person who cannot see be accused of parking illegally not once but 6 times in 1 week?" Elena took a steady breath. Leo, sensing her unease, pressed his head against her leg. "Each time, Your Honor, I was a passenger. I was being dropped off by rideshare drivers, Uber, Lyft, even a friend once. They stopped briefly in a handicapped space so I could get out safely. But before I could explain, the officers wrote me up as if I were the driver." Caprio looked up sharply. "They put the tickets in your name?" "Yes," she replied, her tone calm but edged with frustration. "When they saw me holding a cane, some assumed I was faking. One officer even told me, 'You walk too confidently to be blind.' Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A reporter scribbled notes, another raised a camera. Caprio leaned back, exhaling slowly. That's a serious accusation, Miss Hart. And a troubling one. He picked up the final ticket, its date circled in red. This last one at the DMV. What happened here? Elena hesitated. That officer followed me inside, Your Honor. He told the staff I was pretending to be blind to get a fake ID. I've never felt so humiliated. The room fell completely silent. Even Leo lifted his head, ears perked as if understanding the tension. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Miss Hart, I think it's time we look deeper into how these citations were issued. Something about this doesn't just feel wrong, it is wrong. And with that, the courtroom braced for the truth that would soon unravel every assumption written on those tickets. Judge Caprio motioned toward the first citation. Let's begin here, he said, his tone gentle but searching. What happened on this date? Elena adjusted the papers in her hand, braille labels she'd attached herself. Her voice stayed steady. October 3rd, Your Honor. I was heading to a physical therapy appointment. My rideshare driver stopped for less than a minute so I could reach the ramp safely. An officer saw the car, asked for the driver, then looked at me and said, "You can't park there without a permit." Before I could explain, he wrote my name down. Caprio's expression hardened. How did he get your name? He demanded identification. I handed him my state ID, the one that clearly says, legally blind. He copied it word for word. A low murmur spread through the courtroom. Caprio tapped his pen once, thinking. And this wasn't an isolated mistake? Elena shook her head. The second time was at my workplace. My Lyft driver stopped in a loading zone to drop me off. Same officer, same assumption. He told me, "You're not blind, you just want free parking." I didn't even argue anymore. Leo let out a soft sigh and rested his head on her shoe, as if remembering the chaos that surrounded those mornings. The third ticket, Elena continued, was outside a grocery store. Different officer this time, but the same disbelief. He asked if my dog was just for attention. He laughed when I tried to show him the guide dog tag. Caprio's jaw tightened. He flipped the citation stack over, spreading the first three in a neat line across the bench. You're telling me 3 different incidents, 3 different locations, and every time the officer ignored evidence of your disability? Yes, Your Honor. Every time. Silence settled again, broken only by the faint rustle of Leo's collar. Caprio looked at the courtroom audience, students, reporters, citizens, each leaning forward in disbelief. He spoke quietly as if to all of them. This isn't a misunderstanding anymore. It's a pattern. He returned his gaze to Elena. Miss Hart, I need you to prepare to walk me through the next 3 tickets. If this pattern holds, we may be looking at something much larger than 6 citations. Elena nodded, her composure unbroken. Behind the calm in her voice, a storm was waiting. The proof that discrimination can be written into ordinary paperwork, one line at a time. Judge Caprio turned another page from the pile, his expression a mixture of disbelief and growing concern. Miss Hart, these next 3 citations were all written by the same officer, Officer Reed. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Elena's tone stayed polite but firm. He's the one who seemed most determined to prove I wasn't blind. Caprio nodded slowly. Tell me what happened the 4th time. Elena took a measured breath. That was at a small cafe near my apartment. The driver pulled into the handicapped space so I could step out safely. Officer Reed approached before the engine even stopped. He asked for the driver's license, but when I tried to explain that I was just a passenger, he told me, "Don't play games with me. I've seen you walking around this neighborhood." Then he wrote my name on the ticket. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Caprio's pen paused midair. He assumed you were pretending? He said I looked too normal to be blind, she answered quietly. He said no blind person would use a smartphone. Leo shifted beside her, sensing her trembling hand. Caprio leaned forward, voice low but edged with steel. And the 5th ticket? Elena nodded. At a grocery store parking lot. Same officer again. He saw me get out of a rideshare car, waved at me and muttered, "Caught you again." He didn't ask for details, just wrote the citation and told me to save the tears for the judge. The courtroom was silent except for the faint scratching of reporters' pens. Caprio lifted the final citation. And this 6th one, the DMV? Elena's jaw tightened. Yes. He followed me inside the building, Your Honor. I could hear his shoes on the tile behind me. At the counter he told the staff that I was faking blindness to get a fraudulent ID. The clerks knew me, they defended me, but he wouldn't stop. Caprio closed the folder slowly, then looked directly at her. Miss Hart, no citizen deserves to be treated that way. I'll need to speak with Officer Reed personally. He turned toward the bailiff. Have him report to this courtroom within the hour. The crowd shifted uneasily, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Everyone sensed that the next few minutes could change everything, not just for Elena but for every disabled person who had ever been doubted. Elena reached down, brushing her hand across Leo's head. The dog remained motionless, loyal as stone, his calm presence grounding her in the middle of the storm. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the courtroom doors. Let's find out, he said quietly, whether justice still listens. Officer Reed entered the courtroom a few minutes later, hat in hand, posture stiff. The hum of whispered anticipation spread through the benches until Judge Frank Caprio's gavel brought instant silence. Officer Reed, he began, thank you for coming. Please approach the stand. Reed's boots clicked against the tile, echoing louder than usual. He avoided Elena Hart's direction as he raised his right hand to swear in. Caprio's voice stayed calm but carried unmistakable weight. You issued 3 of these 6 citations, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And did you know that Miss Hart is blind? Reed hesitated. She told me she was. But she didn't look blind. The room stiffened. Caprio leaned forward. What does look blind mean, officer? Reed's face flushed. She walked confidently. Used her phone. Most people who fake disabilities do those things. Elena's hand tightened around Leo's harness. Your Honor, she said softly, my phone reads aloud and my dog leads me. That confidence is the result of training, not eyesight. Caprio turned back to Reed. Did you verify any of that before issuing these tickets? No, sir, the officer admitted. I assumed. Exactly, Caprio interrupted. You assumed. He motioned toward the back doors. Please have Dr. Nora Evans from the Road Vision Advocacy Center come forward. A woman in her 50s stepped up, carrying a briefcase thick with records. Your Honor, she said, Miss Hart has been registered legally blind since childhood. Leo is a certified guide dog trained through our national program. There's no ambiguity about her condition. Caprio reviewed the documents, then looked directly at Reed. Officer, did you realize you were questioning the integrity of an entire certification process? Reed's shoulders slumped. No, sir. I didn't. Then you understand the magnitude of this mistake. Ignorance isn't malice, but it can be just as damaging. He paused, the courtroom hanging on every syllable. From this moment, no parking citation will be written without verifying the actual driver's identity. I want a full report of every ticket issued under similar circumstances. Reed nodded, remorse heavy in his voice. Understood, Your Honor. Elena exhaled slowly, Leo's tail tapped once against the floor. Justice hadn't yet been served, but the truth had finally found its footing. When the courtroom finally quieted, Judge Caprio looked down at Leo, who sat alert beside Elena's feet. Miss Hart, he said, voice softening, your companion here seems remarkable. I'd like to understand how he helps you manage so confidently. Elena's expression eased for the first time that morning. Leo's more than a guide dog, Your Honor. He has specialized orientation training that lets him identify landmarks, objects, and even familiar people. The judge tilted his head, intrigued. Could you show us? Elena gave a small nod. Leo, find the door. The golden retriever rose instantly. Every head turned as he guided her in a flawless arc through the courtroom, around benches, between chairs, stopping precisely at the heavy oak doors. Gasps followed the demonstration. Even Officer Reed's eyes widened. Now, Elena continued, Leo, find Judge Caprio. The dog pivoted and led her straight back to the bench, stopping neatly at the step below it. Laughter and applause broke the tension that had held the room all morning. Judge Caprio smiled broadly. Well, I'll admit, he might be the most disciplined witness I've ever seen. Elena tapped her phone screen. A robotic voice began reading aloud. Text messages, emails, app notifications. My phone has voice-over software, she explained. It speaks everything I touch. And this watch, she lifted her wrist, vibrates to guide me through menus or directions. To many people that looks like sight, but it's technology and training working together. She paused, letting the words settle. That's why I move with confidence, Your Honor. Not because I can see, but because Leo and the tools around me help me live independently. Caprio nodded slowly, visibly moved. What you've just shown us, he said, is proof that independence doesn't disprove disability, it defines it. A ripple of quiet admiration filled the courtroom. For the first time that day, Elena smiled without restraint, and Leo's tail swayed like a small flag of victory. Judge Frank Caprio sat in silence for several seconds after Elena's demonstration. The courtroom was still, everyone waiting for his words. When he finally spoke, his tone carried both authority and compassion. "Miss Hart," he said slowly, "what happened to you should never happen to anyone. 6 tickets, 6 accusations, all based on assumptions rather than facts. This court owes you more than an apology, it owes you change." He turned toward Officer Reed, who stood rigid at the side of the room. "Officer Reed," Caprio began, "I believe you now understand that what looked like confidence was courage. You mistook ability for deceit, and in doing so, you turned enforcement into injustice." Reed lowered his gaze. "You're right, Your Honor. I acted on ignorance. I'm sorry for what I did to Ms. Hart." Elena's expression softened. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I hope what happened to me helps someone else avoid the same pain." Caprio nodded. "It will." He faced the clerk. "Effective immediately, every parking officer in Providence will be required to verify the identity of the driver before issuing a ticket. No more citations for passengers. And all officers will complete a certified disability awareness program within the next 60 days. A murmur of approval rippled through the audience. Reporters scribbled frantically, cameras flashed. Caprio signed the dismissal forms, his pen gliding across the paper. "All 6 citations against Ms. Hart are hereby dismissed in full. And let it be known, this dismissal represents more than one woman's victory. It represents the moment we stopped punishing people for our own blindness." The crowd erupted into applause. Elena blinked away tears she could not see, while Leo lifted his head proudly, sensing the relief that swept through the room. Judge Caprio gave one final nod. "Miss Hart, you and Leo remind us all that justice is not about seeing, it's about understanding." In the weeks that followed, Judge Caprio's ruling spread far beyond Providence. Newspapers called it, "the case that changed how we see the blind." Television crews replayed clips of Leo's flawless demonstration, and thousands of viewers flooded social media with messages of support. What began as 6 mistaken tickets turned into a statewide conversation about how people perceive disability. Within a month, the new driver verification protocol was implemented. No officer in Providence could issue a ticket without confirming who had actually been behind the wheel. Every member of parking enforcement attended mandatory disability awareness training, led by experts from the Road Vision Advocacy Center. The program covered visual impairment, service animal rights, and respectful communication. The results were immediate. Wrongful citations dropped by more than 90%, and citizens who once feared discrimination began to trust the system again. Elena Hart, still soft-spoken but newly confident, accepted Judge Caprio's invitation to help design the city's outreach campaign, "See Ability, Not Disability." Her story traveled to classrooms, police academies, and city halls across the state. She stood beside Leo on countless stages, explaining how technology, mobility training, and trust gave her independence. "Blindness," she told each audience, "isn't darkness, it's adaptation." Even Officer Reed found redemption. Humbled by the experience, he volunteered for the same advocacy center he once doubted. Standing beside Elena during one event, he admitted, "I thought I was enforcing the law. What I learned is that justice begins with listening." Judge Caprio, moved by the outcome, framed one of Elena's dismissed tickets in his chambers. Across the top, he'd written in bold ink, "Dismissed, because fairness starts when assumptions end." Leo's photo soon appeared on the city's official disability awareness poster, golden fur shining, captioned, "Not all heroes see the world. Some help others find their way through it." The courtroom lights dimmed, and for a brief moment, the world felt perfectly still. What started as 6 simple tickets had become something far more profound. A reminder that justice isn't only about laws and fines but about empathy and perception. Judge Frank Caprio often said that kindness is stronger than judgment, and that day his courtroom proved it. Elena Hart's courage had exposed more than a bureaucratic failure. It had revealed how easily society confuses independence with deceit and confidence with privilege. Her story reminded everyone watching that seeing is not the same as understanding. And sometimes, the people who walk with the most grace are those who've learned to navigate the world without sight. So, as you finish this story, take a moment to look at your own assumptions. And remember Leo, the guide dog who showed a city how to see again. If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe to Real Judge Stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more true stories of compassion, fairness, and the power of humanity every week.